Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:15 p.m. and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby? Here. Mr. Helmer?
Here.
Ms. Konick?
Here.
Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Spindler?
Here.
Mr. Zelinski?
I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.851 E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of November 25th, B, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, and C, discuss the superintendent contract renewal.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Seidel. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Ms. Spindler?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
We are moving into closed session and will return to open session around 7 o'clock. It's cold in here. Should I wait for Joe? Ann, do you think? Okay, we won't make people wait any longer then. All right, we're gonna start. It is now 7:24, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. We'll begin with privilege of the floor. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools and therefore are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for you to come and voice your concerns to the board. So please do not be offended when we quietly listen. We may even take notes. We do not immediately respond to your questions and comments. This is a time for you to talk and us to listen. Thank you for coming to voice your comments and concerns. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone, address the chair, and state your name, whether or not you are a resident, and whether or not you are a resident in the school district. Each presentation is to be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Privilege of the floor will be limited to 1/2 hour. Presentations are not to be designed for purposes of engaging others in a debate in this forum. Discussion of certified, classified, or professional personnel or of individual Board of Education members shall not be considered an appropriate topic for this forum, and the speaker will be ruled out of order. We have one this evening, Meg Gardner.
All right. Good evening, board. It is a pleasure to be here tonight and address all of you. My name is Meg Gardner. I am a resident of New Berlin, and I'm a member of the New Berlin United Athletics Foundation, or NBUAF. I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself because I may have only met some of you in passing, or Ron, I believe we met briefly a few times years ago through my late father, Ted Wysocki. A few weeks ago, Joe proposed to the board that the task force initiative should move forward via capital campaign based on the work we completed through the majority of this year. The task force is an agenda item tonight, so I thought it would be prudent for you to have an idea of who you are entrusting this project to. Currently, there are 4 parents who are the core of the NBUAF: Jason Bretzman and John Nutt from the east side of the city, and Dale Hartung and myself from the west side. 2 Ike and 2 West. This is on purpose. As I've gotten to know my counterparts through this initiative, I've noticed a number of unique characteristics that we all share. All 4 of us have recent student-athlete graduates: football, track and field, soccer, and softball. We are intimately aware of the frustration of, or longing for, better outdoor facilities in all of those programs. Coupled with that, we all have younger student athletes in mostly the same sports. These shared characteristics mean we have a history with the various programs and facilities and how they work at each high school. We also clearly understand the recent past discussions and constraints. But we still have kids coming up, which keeps us involved and passionate about working toward much-needed improvements at both Eisenhower and at West. Having both of these perspectives, I believe, is key. And it's really unique that all 4 of us share that. I will also add that we all have day jobs. We've never done anything like this before, but our motivation is high, we are committed and passionate about making these improvements happen, and we all truly care about our New Berlin schools and our New Berlin community. Don't get me wrong, we know our own younger student athletes likely may not benefit from our actions, but we want others coming up through our elementary schools to be able to. We want to move forward, bettering our community as a whole, and give the students of New Berlin access to equal, or perhaps better, facilities than our neighboring communities. I understand discussions about improving the outdoor facilities at both Ike and West have taken place in the past, but have never really reached this point. I simply wanted the board to know that there are passionate, driven, motivated people in place who are committed to this effort and want to work hard to finally get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anything this evening for President's message or announcements, so we can move on to the administrative team report.
I'll defer my items to the open session items. And we do have a video update from Claire, your Eisenhower student representative.
Good evening, all. I hope everyone is doing well. With the second quarter well underway, students are working hard to find success in the classroom, in their clubs, and on the sports field as well. Eisenhower classrooms are full of learning and fun. Spanish 5 students have begun their new unit about identity. AP biology students are set to begin a lab on cell communication in the upcoming days. In the applied retail operations management classroom, students have been volunteering their time during their study halls to work in the Lions Den Cafe to provide a wonderful area for students to study, grab a snack, or grab a drink. Our clubs have had no short of a wonderful year so far. During the holiday season, Eisenhower wants to give back any way that we can, so we are hosting many events in doing so. This Friday, Eisenhower National Honor Society is working with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive. It is a great chance to help out those in need this season. Additionally, National Honor Society is hosting a winter accessories and canned food drive until this Friday. Middle School Student Union organized the Holiday Wish List Drive that will be running until December 16th. Items bought off of the given wish list will be donated directly to the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Eastern Wisconsin. SDNB hosted a Toys for Tots toy drive last week. Eisenhower DECA had their annual father-daughter dance last Friday. It was a successful event full of dancing, pictures, and more. Winter sports have recently begun their seasons. Varsity Boys Swim had an invitational at Brown Deer on Saturday, and Varsity Cheer had a competition at Indian Trail High School. This upcoming Friday, boys and girls basketball face off with New Berlin West at Eisenhower for a doubleheader. Good luck to both the girls and boys basketball teams, and be sure to go out there and cheer. Before I conclude, I want to wish all of the school board and all that attended this meeting a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes notice and the approval of the minutes of the board meeting of November 25th. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? And hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. On to the regular agenda. First up on that is the Outdoor Facility Task Force update.
I would like to introduce Task Force Chairperson David Cody to provide an update since the formal presentation at a previous meeting regarding our Outdoor Facilities Task Force progress.
Thanks, Joe. Tonight, we're just going to do a real quick recap. This is just a follow-up to the last presentation late last month. You had a few questions that we wanted to answer and kind of give you some ideas to where we think we should be going as far as next steps go. As a reminder, this was kind of, I'm not going to go through the whole process of what the task force did over the last several months, but these were the task force recommendations that were, that they had, well, because I was the chair, compiled and then brought forward to Superintendent Garza. And again, reiterating some of the things that Meg just talked about, the SDMB, the task force would like the district to, in conjunction with that group, launch a capital campaign with a focus on multi-purpose stadium improvements, as well as baseball, softball playing surfaces. Capital campaign, it's very important to that small group and to us as well, that we address facilities at both campuses rather than utilizing shared facilities. Again, the survey, we talked a little bit about this last time. The survey results yielded, a fair amount of optimism about what could be fundraised, but we didn't really feel like the task force was in a position to make a recommendation as to exactly how much should be fundraised at that time. And as we talked about, we should continue to work with this group, the NBUAF, because they are very passionate, and these are the type of people that we would need to make any campaign a success. In turn, Superintendent Garza brought forward to you his recommendations, which were to accept the task force recommendations and to continue to work with the NBUAF, and as well as providing resources, skills, time, financial support to any type of campaign that we would launch with board approval at some point. And then, as a reminder, currently in our long-range facility plan, we do have about approximately $2 million allotted for replacement of the tracks at each school. So that's already kind of baked into the project as far as taking that number off the top, and I'll get to numbers in a second so you can see that more clearly. But we also, the task force was very, I had mentioned several times that the dollar amount that we were talking about fundraising was very, very high. So if there was any more support that the school board or school district could contribute or commit toward the project, it would make for a more successful campaign. We did briefly talk about considering hiring a consultant to lead the campaign. I know we had a lot of questions about that, and I will get to that as well a couple slides from now. I'm going to show you some estimated costs that some of you may have seen. I think some of the task force members may have seen this already. These were provided by Point of Beginnings, which was the company or the consultant that we have been talking with. But I do want to caution you and remind you that these are 2022, 2023 dollars. So they're not 100% accurate at this time because of, it's been almost 2 years since, it'll be almost 2 years since we got these numbers. So let me just point out what we're looking at here. On the very far left is the projects, and those projects include Eisenhower Stadium turf and track. And by track, I want to reiterate, that's just not the track that goes around. It's all the ancillary pieces of track as well. So the shot put, the discus, the throws, the jumps, and all those pieces as well. So when I say track, it's not just the running track. West Stadium, same thing, turf and track. Eisenhower baseball, softball, infields only, or Eisenhower baseball, softball, full fields. There is a very vast cost difference between those two. Similar for West, baseball and softball, infields only and full fields. Lights at 4 ball diamonds, which was something that we asked Point of Beginnings to add in there because we talked about this very early on, that adding lights to those fields would increase the amount of usage that we could use those and maximize the usage of those fields. In that second column, that total at the bottom is when you look at just the infield. So it's the two stadiums, the tracks, but also baseball, softball, infields only. So you, adding that $2 million for lighting, you get a subtotal of just over $10 million. The district has already committed $2 million in tracks, so we're looking at about $8.14 million to do all of those facilities. That third column, that's just adding, instead of just infield only, that is the full field, the full diamond baseball and softball at both schools. As you can see, like I mentioned, there is quite a cost difference between those two. On the very far right, there are some notes in there. We talked about the grandstands a little bit being I wouldn't say a point of contention, but it's a added cost that not everyone on the task force was in favor of pursuing. Similarly, I just put West also does not include grandstands, although that wasn't part of the conversation throughout the task force process. That piece about the amended soils, that's just something we haven't costed out yet because that wasn't part of the conversation, so we don't really have a total necessarily for that. But what would happen if we went that infield, just the turf infield route, we would need to do some work in the outfield, and that would require some amended soils to improve the drainage and fix some of the problems that we have at both sites, especially when it comes to baseball. We don't have that same issue necessarily with softball, but the baseball fields both have some drainage issues in the outfield, and amended soil would help fix that. So there is a little bit of a cost for that, or I wouldn't say a little bit, I won't even guess as to how much, but there is a cost associated with amended soils. I did put a note there, if you removed or deferred the cost for the lighting, that would obviously be $2 million less, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then finally, I did mention again, we have accounted for $2 million when it comes to the tracks. So what does that all kind of look like? I know this, I think, Matt, you asked this question, how does this kind of look? What's the breakdown? I'm gonna walk through that a little bit, just to give you an idea of what total dollars amount would need to be fundraised or possibly needed to be fundraised. This is the stadiums, tracks, and infields only. Again, that's the lesser of the two numbers. Still over $10 million. Again, I want to remind you, 2023 dollars, early 2023 dollars too. Take out the $2 million allotted for tracks, you're at just over $8 million. Someone on the board last time mentioned a possible fundraising match of $1 million, maybe it was $2 million. I can't remember exactly what was said, but this would just give you an idea if the district brought another $1 million to the table, the total cost would obviously be reduced by $1 million, and we're looking at around $7 million. If you took the lighting out of the project, again, now we're looking at maybe just over $5 million. Similarly, with the full fields, that 13, just over 13 and a quarter, the $2 million that we've already allotted. If there was a fundraising match of some sort, you're down to 10.3. And again, this is just if you were to remove the lighting. I'm not advocating for removing the lighting. That's not a decision that we've really talked about yet, but it's just as far as trying to get that fundraising dollar down, that would be a way to do that. As far, any questions I shouldn't have, well, let me get through it and then I'll ask for questions, I'm sorry. I know I buzzed through that a little fast. As far as the next steps go, we are actually meeting with the NBUAF again this week on Wednesday. At that time, we are actually bringing in, because they had several of the same questions that you had regarding what a consultant could or would do. So we're actually bringing a fundraising consultant into that meeting, and he's going to share information about what a feasibility study actually is, what a wealth screening actually is, the process for those two steps, and then how someone, either some type of consultant could manage a capital campaign. As far as the school board's next steps, there's still the question of whether or not we want to move forward with this. And I know there were some questions about the cost and all that, so that's why we brought that to you. There is the question about how much total funding could the district commit to this project at this time or in the future. And then, again, I know you still may have questions. And I do believe, Ron, you're attending the meeting on Wednesday, so Ron's going to kind of get the idea of what the consultant could do. So we wanted to make sure that the board got some of that information at the same time so that there was an understanding of exactly what a consultant would do on this type of project. that was pretty fast, so I'm open to questions or anything else, and I'm sure Joe, Pat, and I can answer anything you have for us.
As of right now, everything's kind of an all or nothing, so it's, all of this is packed into here. Have you guys looked at doing just the football fields and the track as a capital campaign for the next, say, 1 or 2 years? And then look at doing the softball fields and baseball fields as a separate piece?
Yeah, we have talked about a phased approach, and again, that kind of is dependent on, some of that may be determined as far as if we do the feasibility study and the well screening, if the results are great and the dollar amounts are out there, there may not be a need to wait to phase the two, but that's, at this point, we don't know what kind of fundraising capability this community has, so.
Are we
it's a little
paying
difficult.
for that feasibility study and well screening?
We have, well, at some point, someone would have to, we have
Okay.
not yet.
They're just gonna present on what that would look like,
He's,
and
yep,
then,
yep, just coming in to tell us about what that is, so yeah, there is no
Okay.
current cost to the district at all.
I was under the impression that we did something similar to this with the foundation before Julie was involved in it. And I think that's kind of why we were told 6 years ago, I think it was, that that didn't take off because they were doing all this groundwork stuff. And my concern with these is there's a lot of groundwork and then we don't actually see where the rubber hits the road for a year or two with that. Was anything done with that? Do you guys remember? I don't know if it was actually a well study or screening.
I believe there was a,
It was a database that they were building or something with that, with alumni and other community members.
that's something different.
Okay.
Alumni Nation, I think, is what you may be
Okay.
thinking about. That was, you're right, we were trying to collect data for an alumni database, and the records that we had for throughout our district just weren't good, wasn't the greatest of data, so we weren't able to compile what we wanted to. That may be what you're referring to, I'm not sure. But it was around the same time as when the foundation was getting going, so it would have been all interconnected, but I think that might be what you're what you're referring to.
I mean, in summary, I think you have my support to move forward with cutting this project in half to start with. I don't love the idea of the consultant. I think we're gonna spend more money than we're really gonna bring in from there. Not completely opposed to it, but I don't love it off first sight, but I'm definitely in support of starting some sort of capital funding, and I think the board would be willing to match some of it. I don't know what the dollar amount is or what the rest of the board would agree to, but
Thanks, Mitch. Matt? Well, at this time, we weren't anticipating anything from the foundation. Yeah, they would be helping out in a supportive role, but I mean, at this time, I think we talked about this a little bit last meeting, with the amount of different projects that they are working on, for them to take on the capital, and I say they, it's Julie, for Julie to take on a capital campaign, all those other projects would fall off. And I think that'd be a detriment to our district, especially the students and the staff that are impacted by those grants and scholarships. That's part of what this conversation is. I mean, if you look at 10 million, if we were to take out that lighting and then, or now it's down to 8 million, so we're looking at a $3 or $4 million. If the district were to move that to 2, that's about a half district and a half fundraising. So I don't think there is a precise, and again, that may be something that a consultant would tell us differently, that it should be. What a consultant will probably tell us is that there's a certain dollar amount of gifts that you need to collect. It's a gift pyramid. And that would kind of break down how that would look. But there is no third element right now as far as. But yes, that kind of thing, yeah.
Would the consultant how would that be paid for? Because it sounds like the foundation could benefit from that as well. Could that be something split between the two? Or is this coming out of community funding? What fund is it?
That's something that we're still looking at, only because we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. That's why we're going to have Ron at the meeting with us. We also don't know what the community group, what their, they haven't heard this yet either. So we're meeting on Wednesday to determine, is this something that we really should be investing in or not? And then if so, yes, we've talked internally about seeing if we could work with the foundation because they would benefit from some of it. like the well screening and the feasibility piece. And then we would figure out a way, like if it was, possibly a fund to 80 approach, which again wouldn't be out of the general fund. But that's something that we would, again, we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on that aspect because we're just not sure we're moving in that direction at this time.
A lot of times, Jan, to answer your question, a lot of times those numbers are just, the consultant fees are just added into what that total dollar amount ends up being. So if it's a $5 million ask from the fundraising, and then I'm just throwing out another $100,000 for a consultant or two, then you have to raise 5.2 million.
So you're throwing the consultant costs then into the.
You can,
fundraising
unless,
body.
yes, and
It's an
the
option.
opposite would be, again, there's a way that if the district paid for it or supported, or if there was a split costs, or, split costs between the foundation and the district.
I do share Mitch's concerns about paying for a consultant, so I guess I'm not full on board with that, but I understand what you're doing.
Adding to that, I think the number one thing myself would like to see out of that is, what is the cost for the consulting fee? What are they guaranteeing? How much are they asking for upfront? How much of that is paid on the back end? So,
Sure.
if it's more of they want $250,000 with no guarantees and we got to pay it up front, it's obviously a lot less advantageous than it comes out of the back end after they raise $5 million.
Yeah, and I think Ron will get a lot of those answers on Wednesday, and I hope he asks similar questions to, not to put the pressure on Ron, but,
No, note taken. We will ask those specific questions on Wednesday.
yeah, yep.
Anything else?
I had one more question on the lights. There was, maybe I'm mixing the two, but we talked about lights going on the track or on the football field for the ancillary fields there. Is this the lights, or is these lights
No.
just for the 2 softball, 2 baseball fields?
Yeah, I'm sorry for the confusion, yes. This would just be baseball, softball lighting. The lighting that we had talked about previously is that if there was some work done to the Eisenhower grandstands, there could be lighting added to that east side of the grandstand, which would then light those ancillary fields or the practice fields, yeah.
Okay. And then, sorry,
That is not included in anything that I showed you today.
one more question too.
Yeah.
I was always told that West baseball fields flood so bad that there's like standing water out there. Do we really feel that this solution is actually going to fix that, or are we putting a Band-Aid on that? That's my bigger concern, is that we actually solve the problem.
Well, I don't want to speak wrongly, but I know there are some drainage issues there for sure. But I do believe that coupled with fixing the drainage problem, that coupled with either turfing the entire field or the amended soil, would be a solution. It would be a solution. Pat, maybe you can speak more to that. I don't know if I misspoke, but I think.
Yeah, if you're putting turf in, you're obviously going to have a drainage system out there that would take care of that issue. Amended soils, they would essentially be taking, like, I'm just going to say like a foot or foot and a half out of that soil, and they would be putting in a mixed soil that drains really well. And then there would also be the drainage that would be in that. So the biggest issue was the West baseball field used to be in a floodplain. And the floodplain delineation was changed, I believe, 2 years ago. And so now we don't have to worry about that.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So we will continue to move forward with our efforts, and we'll keep the board posted. We'll likely have another update at one of the board meetings in January.
Okay. Then we have approved the change to the 2025-2026 calendar.
So based on feedback that we've received from staff as part of a staff survey, and based on the fact that we have instructional minutes cooked into the calendar, we would like to propose an additional staff in-service day or a work day on March 13th. We also have our administrative team and school leadership teams are going to be moving forward with the SAIL Academy training, and this would allow us to have that meeting during that time. But again, the main reason is based on staff feedback.
Do I have a motion?
I move to amend the 2025-2026 school calendar.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby, a second by Mr. Helmer, to approve the amending of the 2025-2026 calendar. Do I have any discussion?
I just wanted to know, is that date significant? Is it just halfway in between breaks or something?
We actually picked it because there was a really long period during the winter
Okay.
months.
Yeah.
And the timing of, when exams are and when teachers could get the most bang for their buck of a workday.
Oh,
I have a question, actually not related to that. When did we move to the whole week off for Thanksgiving? Did we discuss that? I don't remember that being a discussion.
I don't
Maybe I
know.
missed that meeting.
It was the last time we spoke about a calendar, last January.
Okay. Is that just because we had a?
It's just the way that it worked out,
Okay.
yeah.
Are we planning on sticking with that schedule going forward, or is it?
It depends on how the calendars work
Just
out.
falls out? Okay.
Yeah, it's not always going to work out that way, I don't think.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. We don't have anything from closed session. Future meetings and dates are held here in this room on the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7:00 p.m. Next meeting is not until January 13th. And then we have January 27th and February 10th. We have other events and dates. December 23rd through the 31st is winter break. There is no school. January 1st, New Year's Day, no school. January 17th is the end of the quarter. January 20th is MLK Day, and then there's no school. We are going to return to closed session to finish up some things. Do I have a motion?
move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.851 E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, and B, discuss the superintendent contract renewal.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Helmer to move into closed session. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Helmer,
Yes.
Ms. Konick,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski.
We will move into closed session, and we will be adjourning from closed session. Thank you.